this was afternoon now. So just a bit of background around the sessions. We'll be running SAIMM YPC events throughout the rest of the year, every Wednesdays, and that would be the lunchtime sessions. Now, what we're trying to achieve essentially is to link ourselves up with industrial experts to learn from them, but also will give young professionals a chance as well to be panelists so that we can also learn from each other peer to peer. Now, I just want to give Connie a chance to introduce herself, and then Rifente as well, and I can introduce our panelists. Connie?
Hello, everyone. My name is Connie Chijara. I'm currently working as a business scientist at Boomer Collaborations. I'm very excited to be here on this panel and excited to learn some insights on goal setting.
Awesome, thank you. Rifente?
Hi, I'm Rifente, process engineer. I work for Multitech. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it all, but yeah.
Fantastic. I think I actually did not introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Gondwani Panda. I'm a consultant at YM Consulting, and I'm also the secretary of the SIMM's Young Professional Council. So welcome to everyone. Our first speaker for the day will be Mzila. So in terms of how we'll structure it, Mzila will give us an opening presentation, and then we'll give Brioni also an opportunity to do the same, as well as Arjun. And we've allocated about, say, 10 minutes or less to each of the speakers. And then once they're done giving us that opening presentation, we'll open up the floor for discussions. So as our members and everyone attending this specific webinar, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. You're welcome to use the chat box if you want to ask anything off the specific topic. And in addition to that, there'll be a short survey towards the end, which we'd like to encourage everyone to participate in. So our first speaker is Mzila Isaac Mtenjane. He's the Executive Head, Stakeholder Affairs at Exaro. So Mzila is a mining engineer with combined experience in mining and investment banking for 20 years. This includes 7 years in deep level mining at Anglo Gold, Ashanti, and Goldfields Limited in senior management and corporate development roles, respectively. And also has 6 years in investment banking at RMB and Dutch Bank. His knowledge of business sustainability was honed over 6 years as executive business sustainability at Royal Bafokeng Holdings and Royal Bafokeng Platinum. He assumed his current role in 2013. And what you don't know, some of you, is that Mzila also served as the 2019 and 2020 president of the Southern African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. So he's one of our past presidents. Mzila, I'd like to give you the opportunity to give us your opening presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Kondwani, for that presentation. So when I was asked to speak, and I had to pause for a moment and think back as to, you know, when I was in the shoes of many of the audiences today, where was I mentally in as far as goal setting and my future is concerned? And I think maybe the first thing to just put you at ease is that, you know, goal setting is not a once-off thing where you set your goals, you embark on them, and then you will get there. It's a daily task, it's a weekly task. At the end of the day, it's a life skill. And you will achieve some of your goals and some you won't. You will find new drivers for your goals, and some goals you will just ditch because it just doesn't make sense. But I think for me, where the one big goal I can say I set for myself was I was actually already working. I think it was around about, oh gosh, I don't even remember. I'm giving up my age here. But the point is that, so up until that point, I used to go by the name of my middle name, Isaac Mtenjane, at least at school, at varsity. And it was only when I was well into my professional career, I had, I guess, what you could call an epiphany. And I decided that, from now on, I want to be called Mzila. And the reason for it is, firstly, what the name means, and the name that was given to me as the firstborn son of Jimmy and Betham Tenjan, and my parents, who, thank God, are still alive. And it's a name that means a path. As the firstborn child, it had to mean something. There had to be a reason why I was given a name like that. And when I look at what I had been able to achieve in the context of my whole family, there were some firsts. I mean, the first to go to varsity. And when I look at some of the things that I had achieved until then, there were some firsts. And in fact, there were incidences where I had done things which other people would not have done, professional things like when the opportunity to be an executive PA to Paul Harris, who was former CEO of First Rand. It was a huge opportunity, but very scary, but I took it. But I think the most important thing for me in terms of the goal related to my name was what it meant. And I think more importantly, what I interpreted as what was delegated to me as a child and a citizen of this country, being given a name like Mzila, as a path, meaning, with the word meaning a path, I took it upon myself to begin to lead and to play a leadership role. Now, being in corporate, one of the leadership roles one always has is to be that CEO, to have the top job. It comes with money, it comes with stature, with glamour. But I think what I learned is that I think if you can learn to be your leaders first and be successful at that, I think all other leaderships are possible, but actually they become less important. And it was from that point on then that I said, one of my goals in life is going to be to really live up to my name, to the point where in the leadership roles that I've had in my teams, I've asked people to tell me the story of their names. Because when you reflect, and I'm speaking here from an African context, which I don't think is necessarily absent in other cultures, when you look at African names, parents have put in a lot of effort into naming their children, whether it's a girl child or a boy child. And one of the challenges I want to give you all is to take a moment and reflect on what your name means and what it is asking you to do. What is society expecting you to do? What is that one thing that your parents had as an aspiration for you to achieve, which they've given to you through your name, and how you're doing at it? And let that be the base, because it's a base that nobody is ever going to take away from you, no matter what happens. And it is something, a foundation that you will continue to build on. And all other goals will be that much easier because you will have built yourself that foundation. You have built yourself the guardrails and framework within which you will operate and live both in your professional life and in your personal life. But the other important thing within that is also to have a good set of values. Because what these values do, they help you navigate this challenging and very opportunistic world, or a world that is full of opportunity. But some opportunities, you want to know that they're not for you. And some risks, you might say, this is one that you're prepared to take for yourself. And so it was out of that then that a number of other decisions came onto me in terms of what I wanted to achieve. So what I realized is that I needed to be clear what kind of professional I wanted to be. What are the kind of skills that I want to have? What is the kind of knowledge that I want to have? I may not have known, and I don't think I knew then, what I will apply it to. But, the saying often goes that, the world is your oyster. So you create your own opportunities. But I think if you start with yourself in terms of the kind of person that you want to be, the values, the kind of skills, I think you will open yourself up to many opportunities. So by way of example, one of the things that I aspired to do was to speed read. And why? Because there was just so much information to consume. And one of the important lessons about speed reading was that actually you don't have to read every piece of information that's available. Read what is important, and that will enable you to achieve your immediate goals, which then will prepare you for the next goal. It's not necessary to consume all the information and you think that you will remember it when you need it and apply it. And that book, it's a book that I bought, which taught me how to gather expertise and expert knowledge and build on it. And today I'm able to, to speak pretty well, I think, when it comes to topics like sustainability and mining and other things that have built on it. So in this new world of ESG in mining, I'm able to bring these things together. And what I'm also realizing is that I don't have to read up everything about mining and everything about ESG and sustainability in order to be up to date. I've already built a foundation, and that foundation has taught me what are the important things and what are the small gaps that I need to fill up in order to build up my knowledge. And so those are the goals that I set a while back, and I think they've stood me well with the passage of time. And I think for the purpose of this conversation, the goal setting was important for me in terms of firstly being clear in terms of who I want to be inside as a person, the profession that I want to be in terms of the knowledge and the expertise that I wanted to be. And then lastly, to bring it all together, what kind of organizations do I want to work with? And I choose those words carefully, the organizations that I want to work with. I don't work for any company. I work within a company. And I say that because one of the latest thoughts that I've developed is that, finding myself and very fortunate to be working for a company like Exaro, it's a platform. And the implication of that is that it's a place where I have come to apply the best of my skills and capabilities. And Exaro has made available to me the resources that I need in order to achieve the goals of Exaro, as well as my own personal and professional goals. I'm not here in order to be given instructions on what to do. And this goes back to what I said earlier in terms of the kind of person I wanted to be, the profession that I wanted to be, the knowledge and skills that I wanted to be. So now, guess I've met my match in terms of an employer who is now enabling me to be able to apply these skills and capabilities. And so this is where I am now, based on the goals that I've set. And I guess I turned 52 this year. When you turn 40, you make some important goals. You make even more important goals when you turn 50. But all of these decades, you're constantly making new goals. And I'm in the process of making new goals now as I enter my 50th decade to 60. And 2030 is going to be a very important year globally. Who knows what's going to happen? I haven't quite reached the final list of my next goals for the next 10 years. But I also don't take myself too seriously about it. I'm not too hard on myself if in my second year of my decade, I haven't set my goals yet. It's okay. So, when you set your goals, give yourself a little bit of flexibility. Don't be too hard on yourself. There's so much more that life has to offer. I think if you finish a year with one goal and you do it well and you're happy with the outcome and you haven't hurt anyone in the process, I think you will have succeeded. So let me pause there and give others a chance to share as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vila. I think what I liked as you were discussing there is the fact that some goals are more or less long-term and rather also like a life goal. I think sometimes when you think goals, we're thinking New Year's resolution, we're thinking the next 2 months or maybe the next 12 months or so. So that was actually quite refreshing outlook when it comes to goals. Okay, so we'll come back to Mzila. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, you can put them up in the Q&A. In the meantime, we'll give Briony a chance to give us her opening presentation. So Briony Liba is a career and self-leadership coach. She works predominantly with clients in the mining industry and with professionals in STEM careers. She focuses on supporting clients in defining their narratives and taking a lead on how they show up as experts in their network. Prior into coaching in 2017, she worked in the mining and civil infrastructure industry for 18 years in ESG consulting. And you can find her at www.brionyliba.com. Over to you, Briony.
Oh, Kondrani, thank you so much. And I feel very privileged to be following you, Mzila. I think you said so many things that I want to add to and that have kind of added so much value to this conversation. But before I go any further, I'm taking up your challenge on what my name means. And I only found this out a few years ago, but it's really inspired me to show up in a much bigger way than I used to show up. And my name means to grow abundantly. And yeah, I feel very privileged to have this name. And when I was growing up, I hated my name because nobody ever said it correctly. And so I answered to anything that started with a B. But somebody challenged me one day to find out what my name meant. I'd never thought of it before. And when I went and looked it up and realized that it's to grow abundantly, it suddenly changed my outlook on my name, on myself, on my identity for myself. So I definitely want to support Mzila's challenge. Please go find out what your name means. I don't know that my parents were that intentional in giving me that name, but I'm certainly working on stepping into it. So when I was a young professional, I think my goals were hugely aspirational, but in a fairly superficial way. I set a lot of goals that sounded good on paper and sounded good to others and didn't connect with my heart at all. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in maturing and developing experience over the last several decades, is that goals are crucial. When we don't have goals, we've got nothing to focus on. But goals that are set for the purposes of impressing other people can actually be worse than having goals at all, not having goals at all. And so I think what I really want to get across today is not just have goals, but have goals that connect with your head, your heart, and your gut. They need to be goals that when things get difficult, they get you up in the morning because you've got something to strive for. You've got something that reminds you of your purpose for being here, your innate why. And it's quite hard, in my experience, to actually be as intentional as that in setting goals that really don't just connect kind of at an analytical level, but connect with your heart and your gut as well. I think we get trapped in those kinds of goals where we're worried about what other people think. And this really came to mind for me this week because a friend of mine has joined a women's kind of leadership group, and they're actually having a goal setting session today. And for the last 2 weeks, she said to me, I'm terrified of going to this goal setting session. I don't know how to set goals. I don't know what goals are going to impress these women. These are women who are very powerful, and she feels inadequate. And in the conversations that we've had over the last 2 weeks, it's been very much about your goals are not for anybody but you. And when your goals support your identity and your values are underpinning your goal setting, suddenly your goals become something that you can connect with. So a while ago, I was setting some fairly big goals. I was part of a kind of a mastermind group, and the challenge was to set what's called a BHAG goal. And this is quite an old term from kind of old business school kind of theory. And a BHAG really stands for big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay, and I remember learning about this when I was at business school, and having this image of this kind of very hairy, dirty monster that was quite terrifying. And I think the concept back then was really to terrify you into stretching beyond yourself. But I never liked the concept of it because it never made me feel like I could connect with it at a heart level. And so I was struggling to set a BHAG as part of this mastermind group that I was in. And I was chatting to my coach, and he challenged me to reword BHAG. And the rewording that came to mind for me was bold, heartfelt, and generative. Bold connects with your head. Your head's prime function is creativity, giving you the roadmap, helping you figure out how you're going to achieve your goals. Heartfelt connects with your heartfelt passion, connecting with your values, your sense of what you connect with, what your why is, what keeps you going forward every single day. And the G, generative, connects to generative action, building on what you've done, taking things forward, being synergistic, making sure that each of your goals sets the foundation for the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And so what I loved about Nzila's talk is the example of kind of having a goal of speed reading. Speed reading is a skill. It can be an end in itself, but the goal of speed reading set him up to be able to read more, to be able to acquire more knowledge, to be able to integrate more information, to be able to step up and stand out in a way that might not have been possible had he not started with the step of speed reading. And it may have been, there may have been different paths to it. But the point is that when we have a global, big picture view of where we want to go in the long term, and we break that down into smaller steps, the saying, eat the elephant in small bites, is not there for kind of no reason. When we focus on the small steps and we make each of our massive goals into a micro goal, and we focus on what we're going to do today, this week, this month, as opposed to how on earth am I going to achieve that in the next 5 years, suddenly our micro goals, our daily goals, become habits that we can achieve, and they become things that we can build our confidence in because we're stepping out of our comfort zone in a small way rather than taking a massive leap that feels really uncomfortable. And so I think the third point that I want to make is have big goals, stretch yourself, come up with things that you're not sure you're going to be able to achieve, but that take you in a direction that really means something to you. And then take those goals and break them down into smaller timeframes, smaller goals, actionable steps that you can imagine yourself doing today, this week, this month. And I came across a concept a while ago of setting 25-year goals. If you can imagine who you want to be, the life you want to lead, the work you want to do in 25 years, right now, that feels like that's completely unattainable. But when you break 25 years down into 100 increments, you end up with 190-day increments. 90 days is 3 months. Striving for something over a 3-month period is doable. It's not a long period of time. Break your big goals into really small things that you can achieve in a very kind of foreseeable future. The final thing that I want to say is that I think it's important to take action on your goals in 3 horizons. The first horizon is, what do I need to do today, this week, this year, to have an impact today, this week, this year? What are the things I need to immediately do to see an immediate result? The second horizon is, what do I need to do today, this week, this year, to have an impact tomorrow, next week, next year? So those things that you're not going to get an immediate result from, but that sets you up for success in the near-term future. And the third horizon is, what do I need to do today, this week, this year, to stay relevant in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? And that requires you to really be looking at and imagining what the future is going to be like. And there may be millions of options for the future, but if you don't step into your future, connect with what I call your inner mentor, a version of yourself 20, 25 years into the future, it's very hard to take action to move in that direction. Those are the points that I wanted to make. I hope I've made them clearly. Thanks, Kondwani.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peony. As mentioned, we'll move to the last speaker. I will give Arjen a chance to also introduce himself and give us the opening presentation. And then thereafter, I'll open up the floor for more discussions and engagements. So to introduce Arjen, he's the Managing Director of OIM Consulting and has operational consulting experience since 1991. That's actually when I was born. And he has successfully led business improvement projects for several prominent South African companies in the industry, such as mining, financial services, manufacturing, retail, and debt collection, as well as public sector. During this time, he has gained extensive expertise in process redesign, production management, process automation, business specification, and call center optimization. So I'd like to open up the floor to Arjen de Bruin.
Hey, thank you, Kondwani. And thank you all for being here. The first thing is, Zila caught me out of that name thing. I realized I don't actually know my name. What in heaven's name does my name mean? So I quickly Googled it now, man, because I know it's a Frisian name, but I don't know what it was. I don't even know why my parents called me Arjen, because they were living in Holland and they immigrated to Zambia. I said, listen, if you knew you were going to immigrate to Zambia, why did you call me Arjen? Because it's a seriously difficult name. Anyway, so I quickly looked it up and I found that there's two versions. The one version is it comes from Adrian, which means dark side of the Adriatic. So I thought, dark side of the Adriatic, that's not really, fundamentally, that doesn't put me in a good light. But there is a Hindu name. Arjen is also a Hindu name. Thank goodness the Hindus have come through for me here. And it means bright and shiny. I take that one. I'll take the bright and shiny one. That's who I am. The dark side, I've just dropped right off. Got to talk to my folks about how they got to that name. I mean, how did they get, because it's not a family name, I realized, because I know all the family names. Anyway, so that was interesting. At least I thought, I better find out what I am. So there we go from there. Just on the other side, just on the goal setting, I mean, it's quite a personal thing. I mean, when I started out, my first job, look, I studied industrial psychology and I never did industrial psychology. And obviously it informed me. I haven't got a master's in industrial psychology, by the way. I'm one of those guys that in my second year of university found out that I don't like university. I'm sure you guys never had that experience. You all went through and got your master's. I finished my degree and I said, you know, the professors are nice, but they don't seem to be action orientated. They talk a lot, eh? And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed university. The classes were my struggle. University was perfect. The classes were a bit of, you know, they were big too, by the way, big classes. I don't know. Some of the subjects I did for 2 years because it was so exciting. I thought, let me just do this again. You know, I mean, it's just happened to do this. But I managed to finish my degree in 3 years. And then I thought one day I'm going to do honors. I'm still waiting for that day. It hasn't arrived yet. They're not giving it out for free either. So anyway, but in my head, I was going to be an HR specialist. I thought that was going to be who I am going to be. And the third job I got was a process re-engineering expert at SAIMM. And I thought, I need a job. I mean, I'm going to park the HR thing for a while. I might do that later, but I need a job because my folks were basically saying to me, you can't sit here at home. That was after 6 weeks. And I realized, you know what happens when you stay at home? Your folks still treat you like the son, even though you might be in your 20s. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. Like, mow the lawn. Seriously? You know, anyway, so I took that from there. So just to point that out there, and I'll say a few things. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. So, cool. When you think about goals, you've got to think about your career, your aspirations, and where you want to go to. You've got to do that, and life changes, and so your goals change. You know, you'll be amazed when you get children how suddenly some of your goals change. Like, we really need money for diapers. It becomes fundamentally important. Apart from money for alcohol and diapers together, I don't know. Anyway, alcohol soaked diapers are not a good idea either. Just keep it to yourself there. Okay, so your goal should build your foundations for your career going forward, and for the steps you take. Whatever goals you do is for your foundation and career going forward. So one of the interesting things there is your goals must fit who you are. So in consulting at one stage, a big thing was project management. You really do need to know how to project manage. So I did a project management course through UNISA. I hated it because I'm not a project manager. At least know what project management is about, but that's not who I am. I then was heavily involved in process automation in financial services, workflow, electronic content management systems, and that. So I thought, you know what, I need to do a degree in data analytics. I need to understand this thing. I can't stand maths. I mean, I think I did like the first 2 months, and I'm like, this is not me. My wife's a programmer, but this is not me. So I dropped it. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you gotta really understand who you are, what you like, what you don't like when you set out your goals, because otherwise you're just gonna fail. And then it makes you despondent, and then you know. So what I realized is I love business. I love automating processes. I like technology. I like people. So what I started doing, I started concentrating on things of people, things like the supervisor, the frontline leaders, how they impact business, how technology impacts, how automation. So that's basically that over there from that point. So that's who I am. I like that kind of stuff, and I want to change the world. And I want to, and because I know I can. Some of you hate people and you like technology and you love maths. So guess what? Don't start hugging people if you don't want to hug them. And you're not allowed to now by just COVID rules, right? Don't even touch anyone. Don't even come close. Wear a mask. Okay, cool. So there's a few things you need to know about goal setting. Ambitious people set goals. So I'm sure that all of you on here are ambitious. Ambitious people set goals, and obviously they change as they go around. The other thing is you obviously need to have a view of where you're going to, right? And when we talk about goal setting, remember, I'm not just talking about career. You also need to talk about your private life too. You know, you're going to marry, you're going to have children, relationships, that kind of stuff you need to include in your goals, right? You can't split the two because they both impact each other. So you got to do that. Firstly, goal setting needs to be intentional. You need to seriously be intentional about your goal setting. If you're not intentional, then you're never going to achieve it. So basically become intentional. Intentional means be specific. I want to do X. Now it could be I want to promote, get promotion. I want to learn a specific expertise, whatever it is, but just be specific about it. Secondly, you need to make an achievable goal that stretches you, okay? If you make it a goal that you know you're not going to achieve, my word, then why are you doing it? So you've got to make it an achievable goal. Otherwise, you're just going to demotivate yourself, you know. And then the other thing I said is it's got to be fit. It's got to be fit to who you are. All right. So one of the things I then say is when you look at all these aspects of your goal setting, find someone that you can talk to about your goals. Find someone you trust. Find someone that you can confide in. It can be a senior person. It can be a colleague. It can be a parent even. I went to my dad once about a problem in my late 40s, and he helped me out amazingly because he's got insight. So find someone that you can sit with and you can say, okay, give me insight into my goal. Can I do this? Will it work? Etc. Okay, cool. That's the one thing. Secondly is I believe that your measurement of goals, and it's exactly what Brianna said, is 90 days. Give yourself 90 days on the set goals and how to achieve them, and reflect on them. Okay. The thing there is that you're going to do daily, weekly things that's going to add up to your 90 days and adds up to your year. So you need to do that. There's two ways you can kill your motivation. If you literally every day wake up and start ticking off whether you've made something or not. Just, I tell you what, to be honest, have any of you guys tried to lose weight? Have you noticed? I don't say have any of you tried to pick up weight. That is so easy. You don't need a goal for that. That just comes. It's goalless. Just the fat flows. I don't know how it works. It just happens. Anyway, but when you're trying to lose weight, you know, it's the difference between resolution and goal setting. Have you noticed after you've exercised for the first week, nothing happens? Have you noticed that? Yeah, you stand on the scale again and I once took the scale and I said, flip, the battery's obviously freaking dead, or there's something wrong here. After the first week, there's not going to be a lot, all right? It takes incremental building to get to your goal. So don't kind of distress yourself. The other thing is, what's the worst thing that attacks your goal? It's a boyfriend or girlfriend. No, I'm joking. No, I'm putting your leg. It's not that. Distraction. Okay, maybe it is a boyfriend or girlfriend. Distraction. Distraction kills goals. And let me tell you, that's why I'm saying you got to pick a goal that you want to do and that fits you. Because if you're going to do a goal that you hate, distraction is so easy. Netflix, you know, in the olden days, you had to go into the house and switch on the TV with your finger. That was so exhausting. Now you can sit on your phone and watch Netflix while you're listening to me. It's phenomenal. It's made it so easy. Distraction is all over. You've got to be careful about distraction. And as I said, don't measure too early. Don't measure yourself too early. Make sure. And let that person that you can talk to, that mentor, okay, you got to do that. All right, let me just see. Then you got to, I would say to people, question the motivation for your goal. All right. Will it enrich me? Will it help towards my future? Or am I doing it because everyone else is doing it? Because there's a lot of peer pressure here, you know. The issue then, I usually say, are you doing it for affirmation or for enrichment? And let me just define it. For affirmation means basically people saying, well done, wow, that's so good, you know, wow, I really love it. Enrichment is something that's in you, that personally will make you go further in life, in your career, in your relationships, or something like that. One of the goals I think I might be running out of time. One of the goals I always say to people is, you've got to have a lifestyle goal too. You got to say to yourself, I'm going to go to a game farm, or I'm going to go to the beach, or I'm going to do something that enriches you in your life, because we are holistic people. We're not just career-based people with aspirations of getting to the top. We're humans, you know, we love, we sometimes get drunk. That's never happened to me. I always get drunk. No, I'm joking. This is being recorded. This is not going out in the public domain. Please, people, my reputation. Anyway, we are holistic people. So you got to have holistic goals about who you are and where you're going to. And remember, you're living life. Everything about life must be part of your goal. Okay, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Arjun. Yeah, it's been really awesome so far. Okay, before I open up the floor, I actually also want to touch back on what Mzila had mentioned. So previously, Mzila, previously before 2019, I was using the name Wesley. Reason being, they used to mispronounce my other name. And from last year, I've started using Gondwani. And the reason for that change, again, comes back to what you mentioned, the meaning behind the name. Whilst Gondwani means happiness. And I've come to also realize that in most cases, all the things that I tend to do is to also add value to others, as well as bring happiness. So I definitely resonate to what you mentioned about how our names should speak to who we are and what we bring to the table as well. So I see that there's been some engagements in the chat. I want to give Connie the chance to maybe give us an update what's been happening in the chat box. And then I'll give Rifense a chance after Connie to start off with a panel discussion.
Cool, thanks Kondwani, and thank you to all the speakers. So there are a few comments. Sorry, I have some background noise, but I hope you can all hear me. So Peter in the chat said, I believe if you align your goals, your personal and business goals, you'll be in a stronger position to deliver and achieve. And he also had another comment where he said, to really know what you like and what you're good at takes trial and error. So an option is to take your first role and then document your likes and dislikes and then focus on the likes and slowly evolve. You need a purpose to set real goals, otherwise they may be spurious. So those are two of the comments in the section. And then there was a question that Mzila answered from Deboho. Deboho was asking, how can a young person hope to excel in the field of metallurgy and mining industry, as learnership and exposure is very hard to find? Mzila, I don't know if you'd like to just share or expand on your response that you gave Deboho on that question.
Yeah, so what I said is that, Deboho's question is one that I get quite often. And the unfortunate situation is that the mining industry in South Africa has not experienced growth as frankly we should have. We missed the commodity boom 10 years ago. We're kind of playing on the fringes of the current commodity cycle. And as a result, it's not providing a lot of opportunities for aspiring mining and metallurgical engineers into new careers, to really get into mining. And so my suggestion was, one can also put a pause on that. And that requires, some deep reflection and say, given my understanding of where the industry is, what else can I do? And that's not always an easy thing to do because, when we all decided to get into engineering, we started thinking process maybe from what we used to call standard 9 or standard 10. You then get into varsity, you spend 4 years studying, maybe you get fortunate to get VAC work, and you're into it. And then come at the end, there's no opportunity. It can be quite a challenge to then have to decide to shift into something else. But I think this is something that also becomes important in terms of goal setting because, you got to be prepared for change. And not everything will work out the way that you expected. And this is calling for just a slight shift in perspective and understand what are the skills required these days. Mining engineers are actually going to be a different breed going forward because I'm sitting right now in Centurion in our head office. Maybe I've taken the time off to be an hour here from driving a truck in one of our coal mines, which I'm operating from here. That's where mining engineering is going, or at least the profession of mining engineering is going. And what that means is that I needed to have spent time actually playing games and understanding how to operate a joystick, which is a new skill now. And so the knowledge and skill that I acquired at university studying mining and metallurgy will also perhaps become redundant. So this is where the challenge is for young engineers in terms of looking at how do they bring in other knowledge and skills, especially in technology and innovation, that can enhance their ability and chances to get employment and self-employment, by the way. Let's not forget about that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mzila. Rifenze?
Thank you so much. What a beautiful discussion. I have so many questions, but let's start with Bryony. You mentioned an important thing about choosing goals, and you mentioned about choosing goals based on what connects with your heart and your mind and your gut. But I think sometimes personal experience, and maybe you can share how you went about it, is when in your heart you're supposed to do something, but it doesn't really make sense. How do you move blindly when nothing makes sense, like the dots don't really connect in the beginning? So how did you maneuver that through any one of your goals, if you want to give an example?
I would say, for me, getting stuck in thinking about stuff too long stops me from figuring out what feels right for me. And so a lot of the advice that I give to my clients is put your toe in the water, try things, take a risk. And if that puddle doesn't work for you, move to the next puddle. And I say this because when I left my job, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was in a very confused, very burnt out state. I knew I wasn't happy where I was, and I wasn't even functional at that point. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I spent 9 months dipping my toe in hundreds of puddles, metaphorical puddles, of course, to get a sense of what might work for me. And those puddles included kind of baking, it included looking at doing a PhD, it included lecturing, it included coaching, it included starting a consulting business, it included all sorts of things. And the one that I really thought I wanted to, that I really thought was right for me was starting a bakery. And by dipping my toe in that puddle, I realized it was the absolute worst thing I could have ever wanted to do. So baking is something that I love doing for my friends, but turning that into a business would have been the absolute worst thing. And I wouldn't have known that had I not got out of the headspace and into trying something. So often we don't know what we like until we've tried something. And I think there was somebody actually in the chat who said pretty much the same thing. Just try something and be intentional in looking at what felt good about that, what energized me, what didn't feel good about that, what really depleted me, and start looking for the opportunities that support the things that energize you, okay? And from a goal perspective, you know, when you start naming your values and start looking at your relationship with your values. So it's easy to say, I value self-care, okay? But my relationship with self-care at the moment is not great. I never leave time for myself. I don't look after myself well enough. I'm constantly depleted. I might be saying that that's important to me, but I'm not actually acting on it. And so once you can start looking at your values and start acting on your values, you can start aligning goals to your values that actually support and give you space to build a relationship with your values. Rafensi, I could go on about this for hours, but I obviously don't have time. I hope that helped.
Yes, that did help. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if I can ask one more question. I think this one, I'll address it to both Arjun and Zila. We spoke about, trying new things, and Brian, you expanded on that so well. My question is that, how have you guys reconciled with failure at this point? Because sometimes the thing is, when it comes to goals, you will fail. And then if we give an example of moving into starting your own bakery and you realize that this is not working, there is a little bit of a moment where you're like, I'm such a failure. Oh my gosh, like what happens next? So how have you guys reconciled with yourself in moments where you felt like I've failed and you've moved past that? Because I think many of us, even if you come out of tertiary, you failed a couple of modules, that cloud still hangs. And for some people, maybe they still have not let go of that failure. So maybe I'll address that to Mzila first, and then Arjun, you can contribute. And Brian, if you want to add, feel free as well.
Now, I guess as change is a constant, so is failure. But the most important thing, to your point, is what you learn out of it, and not just move on. And so two things I would regard as a failure in my life, and both are academic. So the first one, when I was in investment banking, there was this qualification called CFA. It's an international qualification. You are highly regarded when you have it, because, and rightly so, because you've acquired a lot of knowledge. But it's very, very tough. You've got 6 months, 5 to 6 months to learn, and then from January to June, and first week in June, you write your exams. And the minimum pass mark is 75%. I'm not a finance person, but I suppose if you're an engineer, you know how to figure out some numbers. And I got up to level 2 And well, I passed level 1 after 2 attempts, and then I tried level 2, and then I tried level 2 again twice. And then I said, this is too painful. But I think for me, what the lesson was, it's what I was able to learn from that. You know, I acquired knowledge on finance, which I've been able to build on. And also when I reflected on why I wanted it, well, for the prestige. But my goal of what I wanted to be exposed to in the world of finance from a mining perspective, I was still able to achieve that through other means. So I think there's an expression that, you know, every time one door closes, another one opens up. And then the other failure was a master's in project management. And here, what put me off was I did the academic work and I loved it. And then when it came to the research, I was told that, you know, don't spend too much time trying to find a complex proposal. The purpose of this master's is not to change the course of the world. There's never been a statement that has put me off doing anything like that than telling me I'm not here to change the course of the world. So to this day, I haven't done the research work, but I'm happy with it. Because I said, well, if that's the case, then I'll go change the world by myself without the masters. So you got to really be able to put that failure into perspective, not let it be the end of the world, and then take it and turn it on its head and you use it as an opportunity to do something else, something different, something greater.
Thank you so much. Thank you for contributing. Love that. Yeah, okay, I want to add, but it's okay. Arjun, would you like to add your comments on that as well?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I don't consider anything I've done. So let me put it this way. I've never failed in anything, never. But I haven't achieved potentially what I wanted to achieve. That's how I see it. Listen, I was not a good cricketer, so I played in third team cricket. Did I want to be a good cricketer? Absolutely. The back garden was awash with balls that I was throwing around as a bowler. But the truth of the matter is, I started to realize who I was, what I could and couldn't do, and so in essence, there were obstacles in my way, which I basically said, you know what, I'm trying to be something that I'm not, and I think that's got very much to do with people around me who kept on saying, you know, Arjun, you're basically not going to achieve in that area, because that's just not who you are, you know, and so after a while you start understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. I started playing to my strengths, but the only real failures I've ever experienced are personal failures, where I became so consumed by work and by achieving things in work, that my relationships with my family and the relationship with my colleagues were at a point where I literally at one stage used to weekly explode. I used to come into the office and just explode from anger. I'd start shouting. I even learned a few swear words. I don't know where that came from. But the truth of the matter is that, and I started fundamentally understanding that there's something wrong with me here, because I'm damaging people, and then from a personal point of view. And then, and that's where funny enough, that's where my dad came in, and he said, you gotta center yourself again. You've got to start finding out that work is not you and you are not work. There's two differences here. The company and you are two different people. When something happens to the company, it's not you personally. So I started, and so that's the only time I really said, yes, I used to work with people for 20 years, and I started shouting at them. And guys were going, who in heaven's name is this guy now? So that's the only real failure I had. And the one thing we must understand about goals and ambition is that it must never destroy relationships. Then it's the wrong type of goal. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. I resonate with that so much. And I think I've gone through my own of like separating myself from work. So I love that because I've had my own personal experience with that. So I absolutely appreciate that. I see we have a hand up. I don't know if we should address that one. Anthony, did you want to come in there?
Yes, thank you, Rufenze. I don't know if you guys can you hear me? Thank you for acknowledging me. And I think it's been a phenomenal talk. I really enjoyed the insights from the panelists and all the knowledge I'm sure many of us will be walking away with. I just had another question in terms of, I mean, it's a question that I've toyed with in my earlier years of my career as well, is there such a thing as work-life balance for a young professional, considering how competitive the world is right now? And it was touched on earlier as well that there aren't a lot of opportunities out there, right? So if you want to be ahead, you have to be ambitious, you have to chase your goals. I mean, we are living in this age of YouTube sensations, TikTokers, people becoming unicorns by 21, so this is the world that we live in, right? It's very, I mean, the BHAG goal is really BHAG, right? And it's expected that you achieve it earlier and younger. And at the same time, I mean, it's been mentioned throughout the talk today, you have to consider the personal side, but how does one navigate still setting goals, both sides, and while you're ambitious, and is there such a thing as getting it right, or would one have to sacrifice one for the other early on in the career and then find the balance later on in life?
Okay, so sorry, just before we respond to that, I just want to give a note that Mzila will be logging off exactly at 1 because he also has another meeting. And then if there's still questions that we need to address, maybe we can allocate an extra 5 minutes after 1 for those that are still able to stay online. So you may go ahead, Mzila.
All right, thanks. So maybe just to Anthony's question, it's a question that has actually become top of mind these days. And for me, I've kind of resolved it by saying I think there needs to be a life balance, and not think of the part of your life you spend at work not being life, because it is part of your life. You can't separate it from who you are. So it's about finding a balance within your life amongst all the different things that you're doing. And I think, COVID has kind of taught us how to pursue that balance, because for me, one of the biggest lessons is that it has brought corporate to the party in terms of how employees can be enabled to pursue that balance. So the time that we got to spend working from home, you discover new things about what happens in your home when you're at work. And now that you're at home, you become part of that. But you also discover new things about actually what work is and how you do work, and therefore how you need to bring these things. So my philosophy is that, I live 7 days a week, part of which I work, part of which I play, part of which I do other things. There will be times during the week when I will go out cycling in the afternoon or late in the morning, because I know that there are times when on a Saturday or a Sunday, I'll take a couple of hours to work. So it's also bringing an understanding of the times when you're most effective, the times when your family needs you, when you need to be with yourself, and when you need to be with other people, and how all of these things actually come together to just energize you. Thanks.
Can I add to that?
Yes, you may.
I detest the concept of work-life balance. A lot of what Mzila says resonates because it pits work and life against each other, and it suggests that we are two-dimensional people, and we're not. We are multi-dimensional. Added to that, you add a time dynamic. What's important to you when you're starting out your career may be very different to what's important to you when you are kind of older, you have children, you have various other priorities. And for me, it's all about your relationship with your values, and it's about recognizing that sometimes your values are going to have competing agendas, and it very much is about weighing up what's important to you at that point in your life and building your relationship with what's important to you at that point in your life. When I started out in my career, the most important thing for me was to get as much experience as I possibly could. So I volunteered for everything. I worked long hours. I asked for stretch assignments. I asked to work with kind of diverse range of people in a diverse range of environments. Now, kind of 25 years later, I don't really want to travel to all the tough places that I've been to across the world. I really quite like the comfort of my home. And what's important to me right now is being able to work and play and socialize. I'm not as interested in earning lots of money as I was before, because what I do with my money is very different to what I did with it when I was a young professional. And I want to be able to work largely from home, irrespective of COVID. And so my relationship with what I value and what I'm acting on at two different stages of my life, including in between then and now, has changed fundamentally. And I really think you need to do an evaluation at various stages of your career and your life on what you value at that point, how your different values might compete with each other, and where you want to focus your attention. And there's no right or wrong answer, and there's no anybody else telling you what's right for you. This is a real reflection and soul-searching exercise to figure out what works for you. If you want to invest all of your time in your career, that's absolutely fine. But when other things come up that are important for you, reflect again on where you want to invest your time at that point in your life.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Arjun, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I agree with very much where you're at. I mean, when I was young, I worked 15 hours a day. Now I stress 15 hours a day. There's a slight difference there. But as you get older, you fundamentally start changing. But Brony said something about, I don't want to travel to place, and that Kondwani, that's not for you. Hey, you're going to travel. It's fine. You can do this thing.
Correct.
Oh, when I was Kondwani's age, I was traveling to all the places.
Yes,
You've got to put in your time and sleep in very uncomfortable places.
One of the interesting things we find, obviously, in consulting, because we travel a lot, is that you find some individuals love it, and their families work with it. It's versus other individuals, after a year or two, they realize they're going to lose their families, and then they need to make an adjustment and say, okay, fine, I'm leaving. And I'll be honest, they'll say, I'm leaving OIM Consulting, not because I don't like the companies, because my values have changed. And this is the one thing that I want to make very clear to individuals here. You're not loyal to a company, you're loyal to yourself. And where you and the company's, let's say, aspirations start changing or becoming different, then you have the full right to say, I'm leaving the company. And from our point of view, and I've mentioned this before in our company, is that, and when you decide to leave, you come and you tell us, and you go with our blessing, because you really only have one life, and you really have only one life to live, and you have to experience it your way. I don't want anyone working for a company that experiences guilt feelings if they want to leave, because that's not life. That's you need to be able to say, listen, I want to move on, and that means a change. Because remember, you can always go back to the company if you want to, that had you before. But the truth is, you need to look at yourself and say, I'm doing this for myself. You know, right now, me and the company are not going the same way, so I'm gonna part. And you should be able to part with a happy heart, not, oh my word, I'm letting people down and what will happen. That's not what this is all about. So that's the only thing I want to say there.
Pente, you had a question?
Yes, I just want to contribute to this from a young professional perspective who has gone through this. So I just want to add, you know, when I graduated many years ago, yeah, so after I graduated, I always felt that I fell behind because I added 2 years to my degree, my undergrad degree, let me be specific. So I always felt that I fell behind, and so I had this dream of catching up to the people I started with. different topic. But what I want to add is that, so in the year that I was doing my honors, I'm busy with my master's now, but in my year when I was doing my honors, I had a little bit of a stumbling block with my research, and because there's course modules and there's research, and I had to change my topic. So within a month, I was only left with a month to submit. I dedicated every part of my being to make sure I finish in record time, because I guess I didn't want to go through the experience that I had with my undergrad, and I just wanted to finish it. But what I want to highlight, on top of that, obviously I'm trying to be this, like Anthony said, it's so competitive. I really wanted to still be the best engineer I can be, so I was still raising my hand for everything, and I was still pushing my honors and trying to finish everything. But that meant very little sleep, very little socializing, going back to Arjun's points about relationships. So my relationships were very shaky. By the time I finished, you know, I had literally a mental breakdown where I was forced to take a break for about 2 months doing nothing. And now, after a while, I reflected on them, like, was it really worth it? Like, was it worth it to finish in record time and compromise my health and everything like that? So I think the biggest lesson and what I want to contribute to that is that it's so important to remember you're running your own race. So move at your own pace, and life will happen where things won't always go according to plan, and that's perfectly fine. I think if you are running a race in comparison to someone else, that's where the problem comes in. I think it's okay to look at other people and be inspired, but don't make their race your race. I think it's important to stick to your path. So what I want to add on the work-life balance is, like, listen to your body. You'll know if you're overstretching. Like, you will know that you know that you know you're overstretching. And you will also start seeing little things like relationships falling apart. And that already is an indicator that something's wrong that you are doing, and it's time to reflect on how you can do it better. But yeah, so there's time, and that's the important thing. There's so much time. In retrospect, I wish I took the extra year and enjoyed my research, because I love research. So what's important, I think, when it comes to thinking about work-life balance is to remember that even though it's competitive, but you have enough time in the world, as long as you are taking the right step and you actually want to be the best version of yourself, you'll get there eventually. But enjoy it, like, enjoy the journey. Don't rush it. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. Thanks. That's what I wanted to add.
Oh, that's really awesome, Fente. So I want to actually ask the closing question. There's one from the participant as well, and then I'll just combine it with mine. So the question from the chat box, it says, as much as goals are important, I believe more critical preceding goal setting is the need for a personal vision. This can be in the form of a statement, a picture, painting, something that captures it for you. So I guess in this case, it's a matter of how important is personal vision to one setting goals. And then the follow-up question to that, I want to also try and find out that as leaders, as a managing director, as a business owner, and so on, how different are your personal goals to the goals that you have for your organization? Do you still have stretched goals as well, or are they in some way a bit limited because they also rely on other people? So how different are they between the organization goals and your own goal, as well as how important is personal vision to those specific goals?
Maybe I can start. I absolutely agree that having a personal vision is crucial. And part of it is because it activates a part of your brain that starts enabling you to take in information that sets you up for the right opportunities. When you can imagine where you want to be in the future, where you can imagine what that looks like, what you're going to be doing, what your life is going to be like, and you have a real kind of visual image of that. And I like the fact that this person said it could be a picture or a painting or an image. That stimulates a part of your brain called the reticular activation system, which is basically the gateway for information, because we filter, we distort, and we delete information that comes into our brain. And unless we can focus on our vision for ourselves, our brains can actually shut out information that sets us up to leverage opportunities. So, you know, when you say, I want a yellow, I don't know, Golf as my next car, you haven't seen a yellow Golf on the road forever. The moment you start to think about, I want a yellow Golf, suddenly there are yellow Golfs absolutely everywhere. That's your reticular activation system taking your unconscious and marrying it with your conscious and opening the doorway for that information to start coming into your brain. So vision, absolutely crucial. Second part of your question around personal goals and business goals. I am a one-person business, so my business goals and my personal goals are hugely intertwined. I have very big goals. I've got a 25-year goal of what I want to achieve in my business. And that is broken down into micro goals that I can focus on every quarter of the year.
Thank you very much, Brianni. Arthur?
Yeah, so sorry, just something on my eye there. The personal goal thing, it's pretty interesting. When I was younger, my real personal goal when I started work was, I'm going to be the best that I can be in this organization, or where I was at, if I had to be honest. Because when you first start out, it's very difficult. I was not going to become the CEO of SAIMM when I started. It kind of like wasn't going to work for me. Somehow didn't have the degree for that. Actuarial science was not really me. But what I decided is I'm going to become the best that I can be at that point there. So my whole my goal when I first started work is that, listen, people will notice me because I'm doing so damn well in what I do. And that was my goal. And I don't mean in an arrogant way. I wasn't going to walk around shouting at people saying, look how good I am. I'm just going to do the work. And I'm going to learn, and I'm actually going to enjoy it. And so that's what I did. As I was starting to do the work, I actually said to myself, because remember, I actually wanted to go back into HR. I actually then said, geez, I actually like this. This is actually fun work. You know what, what's the next best thing that can happen to me in this kind of work? Well, to be honest, SAIMM is an insurance company. They're not a bunch of consultants. I'm an internal consultant. So I said, you know what, I'm going to join an international consultancy. What the hell? Let's just join the international consultancy and just learn from them. And that's what I did. I sent out CVs. I met people. I really frustrated one consulting company because I was very Dutch. I was straight because they were rude to me. So I was rude back. Didn't get the job. Strange, eh? So funny. You're rude to people, you don't get the job. I don't know how that works. Anyway, so that happened. And then what I did is I said, and then I got into an international consultancy. Then I said, you know what, I'm going to learn as much as I can from these guys. Yeah, they worked me hard. Yes, I flew, I worked. Yeah, I did day shift and night shift. That's before the safety stuff really took hold. Now you couldn't do that. Then they're like, okay, you finish the day shift, you go have supper, and then we'll see you at 12. Like, at 12? What, 12 at night? Yes. That's like in 2 hours time. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so I did that and you learned, and then you work hard, and then you say to yourself, yes, I've learned everything I can from these guys. What's next? And bang, I went into information technology, process automation, joined a two-man company without knowing it was two people. That's something you should also do. Do your analysis before you join a company. I joined the company, it was a two-man show. I said, so where are the guys? And the MD said, it's me, Johan, and you. I'm like, and me? Like, you know, I left international consultancy for a two-man show. You know, let me tell you, you know what motivation that you're married and you've got a house. Let me tell you, I learned selling skills very quickly. Very, very, very quickly. I thought, Flip, I better start selling because otherwise we're going down. And I've got a bond. So then what I did is I set the goal. What was the goal there? The goal there was to grow the business. And so I learned selling skills. And so that's what I did. And I learned selling skills. I learned, hey, how do you solve problems for companies? You know, how can we help companies solve their issues? And so that's how I started building a personal view. And then it comes to exactly what you're saying now is how did when I got to AM become what's the company view versus, you know, the personal goals? And there's a slight difference because my personal goals is I'm very ambitious. I want this company to be the best company in the space that it is, which is frontline leaders, in the mining industry. That's what I wanted to be. And the other side is I realized that I can't enforce my goals on the company or on the leadership team. So you need to learn how to influence, how to get people to support you, how to get your arguments in line, to ensure that you're making, and also to change tact when your colleagues say, that is so off whack, it's not going to happen, we can't support you in that. You say, okay, fine, hang on, you know what, you're right, and you start adjusting things like that. And so what I've done is if you're a leader, you need to say to yourself, how am I going to get a team goal that actually also supports my personal goal? Because you can, if you're a leader, you can enforce autocratic goals, but then you lose the people after a few months to a year. And so that's why I keep on saying to people, the most important thing you need to know is when you're growing in an organization is how do you influence people? Not tell people. How do you influence people that they say, you know what, I support your vision, let me walk with you. And that's how you build your own personal goal, because you're taking people with you, and that's how you grow your company goals. So yeah, I don't know if that's answered, but there's an answer at least.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Finn. Oh, just give me a second. Thank you very much for the responses. I think now it brings us to the end of our session. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us, for making time out of your busy schedule to actually come and impart knowledge with us, the young professional. Most importantly, also, I want to encourage our attendees to continue participating, to continue engaging with us. One of the things that we'll do is the video that it's been recorded, so we'll share it on YouTube and on LinkedIn, and we'll try and also get the audio out through a podcast. So one of the things that we're trying to do is also create a podcast so that those that aren't able to be on their laptops can still access these quality discussions that we've had on their phones wherever they are. I'd like to thank you, Brioni. I'd like to thank you, Mzila and Arjun as well. But most importantly, I also want to thank you, send a thanks to WIMSA, which is the Women in Mining South Africa, because we approached them to say, hey, need a speaker, and they sent us Brioni. So we definitely thank you send our thanks to everyone. I'd like to give the opportunity to Brioni for closing remarks, and then Arjen, and I also want to give Fense, if you have also closing remarks. Connie had some background noise issues, hence she disappeared quite a bit, but also want to give her an opportunity to give us closing remarks. Brioni?
I think I'd like to suggest that everybody needs to spend time getting to know themselves. When you know yourself, setting your own goals is pretty easy. When you don't know yourself, it's very easy to be influenced by what others think is right for you. So set time aside to reflect on your values, on what's important to you, on where you imagine yourself being in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. You don't have to get it right. It's just giving yourself a sense of direction. Thank you for having me. I have a huge amount of faith in the young professionals that I engage with in these forums, and always a pleasure to participate in this. Thank you.
So I just want to also say thank you. It's been wonderful chatting to you all. And I don't have a lot to say now because I've said a lot before. I want every one of you to be ambitious. And in your ambitious, stretch out and include those that are on the sidelines. That's all I have to say.
Awesome, thank you. Connie?
Thanks, Kondwani. Yeah, it's been a very insightful session. Brian, it's always really good to hear from you. I loved your insights about the inner critic and how you can use that to really motivate yourself. Unfortunately, Mzila is gone, but he also had a lot of wisdom to share. And Arjun, to you, I think my biggest takeaway is I often set affirmative goals and not really goals that offer me, that enrich me. So I'll be making sure to set more enriching goals from here forward. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Fenfe?
Thank you. What an amazing discussion. I think my biggest takeaway from all the speakers and the contribution within the chat, so even the participants, is really to just work towards being the best version of yourself. And I loved what Brioni mentioned earlier on. It's like you need to take the time, like literally block out time on a Saturday to say 8 till 12, I'm figuring this thing out. So yeah, you kind of have to be that level of intentional. But I absolutely love the encouragement of being ambitious and going back to being the best version of ourselves, not someone else, but of ourselves. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the panelists.
Fantastic, thank you. So Anthony had raised a question. I actually wanted to introduce him. Anthony is the current vice president of the YPC. So Anthony, any closing remarks?
Thanks, Conrad. No, nothing that hasn't been said already. Just, yeah, this was a wonderful event, and hopefully the first of many for the year. We're planning to have a whole series of this. Great to see the attendance numbers, the great lineup of speakers as well. So I'm just very chuffed and thrilled and excited about where YPC can go in helping young people grow their careers in the future. So thank you very much for everyone who participated.
Fantastic, thank you. Also, just an encouragement that let's continue engaging on LinkedIn and other social medias. Follow the SAIMM YPC. Toluli said, you mentioned that your question was not answered. Again, feel free, you can post it on the LinkedIn page. You can send us a direct message, and then yeah, we can continue to engage. Thank you everyone, and have an awesome day further.
And well done on facilitating, Kondwani.
It's a pleasure. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.